Ever heard of hazardous energy? Hazardous energy is anything around the workplace that poses a potential hazard. It comes in many forms, but some of the most common are voltage, hydraulic, pneumatic, gas, vacuum, high temperature, and stored mechanical energy. Modern machinery can utilize many forms of energy, but when they're shut down for testing, maintenance, or access, the energy just doesn't go away. Workers can be injured when energy is released unexpectedly. That's why it's so important to perform a lockout/tagout when you're working on board equipment or machinery. Let's have a look at how to do this in accordance with board procedure and plant service practice. Your life could depend on it. Some examples of equipment that could be shut down, isolated, or restored include but are not limited to the following: pipelines and valves, including gas and water lines, divided partitions that are electrically or mechanically controlled, boilers, pumps, domestic hot water tanks, and electrical panels. There are two types of lockouts: electrical and mechanical. Examples of electrical lockouts include work on circuit breaker panels, main disconnect switches, power cords on equipment, and directly wired equipment. Mechanical shutouts include valve lockouts for pressurized lines, gas, and water. The lockout/tagout demonstration you're about to see is for an air handling unit in a mechanical room that needs to be isolated and serviced. Know exactly which hazard areas need to be locked out and tagged for safety maintenance. If you're unsure, you should contact your supervisor. If the supervisor can't be reached, contact your assistant manager of operations. It's important to note that some areas where equipment is located may be deemed restricted or confined spaces. Before entering these areas, the restricted space entry plan form must be filled out and the entry procedure followed as outlined. Never guess. Once the areas that require a lockout/tagout are determined, get the proper equipment from the Plant Services Lockout/Tagout Equipment Board in the school or work location. Record the information in the caretaker logbook. These are the lockout stations provided to the caretaking and maintenance staff at elementary and secondary levels and administrative locations. The larger station is for the secondary schools. The lockout boards are mounted on a wall in the boiler room, caretaking office, or caretaking common room. They must be conveniently located and fully stocked in case of an emergency. The caretaking lockout/tagout devices are not to be used by anyone other than caretaking and maintenance staff. The hasps in these stations are typically used for locking out electrical systems, such as breaker panels, main disconnects, and motor or pump starters. Plant Services Management will assign a maintenance worker or contractor to properly lock out all other energy sources, such as isolating a valve on a water or gas line. Plant Services only use board-approved devices for a lockout/tagout. Never use board-approved locks for anything other than a lockout/tagout. These locks represent a potential danger, and we don't want people to stop taking them seriously. Replacement locks are issued by your supervisor. If you've received a replacement lock, one of its two keys must be destroyed for safety reasons. One key per lock will prevent someone from mistakenly removing it when they don't have authority over the lockout. Since we're completing a lockout/tagout on the air handling unit, we need to turn off the power source and lock out that piece of equipment with a lock, a multi-hasp, and a tag. The tag must be clearly visible and attached to the lockout device padlock and not the hasp. If the tag is not visible, you must add a second tag to an area where it can clearly be seen. Tags are crucial because they identify who locked the equipment out, the date it was locked out, department or location, and the reason. Tags may have different styles, but they all have the same information. You may have to lock out more than one energy source in order to work on one piece of equipment. Only one person is put in charge of a lockout/tagout to prevent confusion and accidents. You applied the lock, therefore you are responsible. Always double check that the lockout equipment is secure and the energy source is at 0. Prior to testing, maintenance, or access, maintenance staff must use controls to reduce the safety risks associated with the sudden release of energy, position operating mechanisms to prevent movement, reduce fluids, gas, and/or air to 0 pressure, Allow hot or cold surfaces to return to normal temperatures, and test to make sure all controls are at zero energy before work starts. Only board-approved licensed maintenance personnel may open electrical systems exposing wiring and/or other devices and perform maintenance or service to electrical and mechanical systems and equipment. All contractors and/or repair persons that are not board employees must follow the board's lockout-tagout procedure and the plant services electrical safety practices. They must also use their own lockout devices. Do not allow contractors or their employees to use the board's locking devices. The next step is to notify everyone affected, such as principals, teachers, shared use facility staff, childcare staff, vendors, and contractors that there's a lockout in progress. If no one is around, you may need to email or contact other plant services staff who should be informed. During the time of your lockout service, you may finish your shift or be called to leave. If the lockout is continuing until you return the next day, you would keep the key. If someone else needs to be involved or complete the lockout, you must make sure that they've applied their own board-approved lockout device on the same hasp as yours before removing your device. Never give your key to anyone, including a fellow caretaker or maintenance staff member. If you put the lock on, you are the only one who can remove or authorize its removal, except in very special circumstances when there are multiple lockout devices and workers involved. If you're not available to remove your lock, board procedure will allow the lock to be cut off, but only if a supervisor has deemed it safe. There are times when multiple lockout devices need to be applied to a control point or piece of equipment. Occasionally, a contractor or board maintenance staff will be required to perform testing, maintenance, or service, and will assume control of the lockout. At times, multiple contractors, such as a plumber and electrician working together, may need to service an item that was locked out. Once you've verified that the work is completed, the locks and tags can be removed. There are a few things to remember here. Check the work area to make sure that all tools and materials are removed. Make sure the area is clear of people. Only take off the lockout device after all people doing work give approval. Restore energy. Sometimes people take off the locks but forget to restart the equipment. Confirm that the equipment is functioning after energy has been restored. And log the event in the caretaking logbook and your maintenance log for that piece of equipment. Return the lock, hasp, and key to the lockout-tagout board and discard the used tag. Once everything is completed, notify the necessary parties that the equipment has been serviced and is no longer in lockout-tagout mode. Thanks for watching. For more information on lockout-tagout, reference the board's Procedure 442 on the BWW under Board Documents. You can also review the Plant Services Standard Operating Practice (SOP) lockout-tagout on the Plant Services site.